tonight, we're going to be talking about the research done by a woman named Brene Brown. Many of you, have you heard of her before? Yeah. So she's pretty mainstream at this point. I love that she's a social worker. She's out of Texas. She's an author, researcher, has written a bunch of books.
And a new one coming.
And a new one coming. I saw that recently. What's that about?
I don't remember.
Okay. It's about memory. It's about menopausal memory.
Yeah, just Google her.
Just Google her, I know. So in her rise to fame, she now is on Oprah's team. So I think once you're there, you're in. But that said, she's got a lot of really interesting research, and we will be taking a look specifically at research called and completed and put into this book called Daring Greatly. And at the end, we've got some handouts, so you don't have to take notes. Basically, I pulled a bunch of great quotes on both shame and vulnerability to take home and ponder. She, in preparing this book, did 12 years of qualitative research with over 1,000 people. So for those of you in research, you know that means she was talking to all these people. She wasn't just crunching numbers. She was doing the hard work and the assessment, and it's hard work, and yay for her. And it's wonderful that she's come forth with the theories that she has. So we're going to talk about her findings. We're going to do some exercises ourselves, and then talk even more. And hopefully you'll leave here tonight feeling a little lighter and with a couple of tools in your tool belt that you didn't have before. So that's the intent. And if you didn't get that, come to me and we'll talk later. Okay? And also, in terms of facilitation, interrupt me anytime. It's fine. I have no shame.
Yay!
Yay! So, she references, and I like to ape this, borrow this, Carl Jung, the famous dearly departed psychologist, called shame the swampland of the soul. And that's a pretty dark, dank, non-happy place. She defines it as the intensely painful feeling or experience of believing that we are flawed and therefore unworthy of love and belonging. I was talking to someone recently who defined it as exposure in the absence of love, and I thought that was sort of poignant. Just the idea that we've all been there. We've all had situations and things happen when you're fully exposed and you're not quite sure what to do next. So let's talk a little bit about the difference between shame and guilt. I found this really helpful when I was starting to read her books and research this and get a grip on it myself, because I thought I understood what shame was. And she points out the difference between shame and guilt is best understood as the difference between I am bad and I did something bad. So for those of us who have carried around guilt and experienced guilt, that's I did something bad. Oh, I missed my girlfriend's birthday, or oh, I don't know, I ate chocolate for dinner all night, right? I did something bad. Yay, we all have it. It's universal and one of the most primitive human emotions that we experience. And here's why. Between ages 0 and 5, those of you who know about developmental psychology, we are this tabula rasa in our brains. And as parents or as children growing up, our parents are trying so hard to keep us safe. And unfortunately, something like Bruce Lipton has written a book about this. 80% of the messages that go in are negative. It's, who do you think you are? Get your pajamas on. Don't go over there. Stop it. Stop it right now. So it's all these negative messages that children whose brains are operated in an alpha-theta rate, which is what we look for when we're in Shavasana or when we meditate because we're trying to calm down. Children automatically, as their brains are forming, are in this alpha-theta state. They're absorbing everything. This is the time when they really, really can learn piano and languages and all these good things. And they're taking in all the bad stuff, too, that as parents, we're in trying to keep them safe, are feeding them. So it's a conundrum. It's a huge conundrum because The information is going in and being really drawn in. There's that great song from Into the Woods, Children Will Listen. Careful the things you say, children will listen. And they are listening. They may not look like it, but they're listening. So that's why we all have it. We're afraid to talk about shame because it's embarrassing. And the less we talk about it, the more control it has over our lives. And it's sometimes difficult to recognize. What happens is when we're in a state of overwhelm, cortisol is going through our brain and it makes us either fight, flight, or freeze, which we still have access to, but we don't always need it. And unfortunately, when we go into that state, we've robbed ourselves from accessing this part of our brain, which is up here, the prefrontal cortex, which is the more tempered, the wisdom place. And that is what happens when we feel shame. It goes right into that amygdala, and we're in a fight flight. I mean, how many times, well, we'll get to that. What do we do in order to recognize shame? Because it's hard enough to know that we have it. And then to be able to take a pause and realize, whew, I guess I do have this. You have to be a little bit vulnerable. You have to open up that part of yourself that says, maybe I can't bring home the bacon and fry it up in the pan. Maybe I don't like to cook. And maybe I'm overweight, and so what? And maybe I can be okay with myself with that. So she defines vulnerability as uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure. And yet, it is the birthplace, I'm jumping ahead here, but I love this quote. It's the birthplace of love, belonging, joy, courage, empathy, creativity, accountability, and authenticity. Bring it on. You know, this is good news. The perception that vulnerability is weakness is the most widely accepted myth about vulnerability and the most dangerous. The first step in 12-step is to accept that you're powerless. And who wants to accept that? Nobody. So it's recognizing the body sensations you're getting, putting it into words, and then challenging, like, could this be true? And then being able to have a more honest, loving sentence. You could tell yourself, yes, this is hard. Yes, this hurts. And you'll be okay. Boy, it makes a difference when you're able to start doing that. And I'm seeing people nodding their heads, so I know that you're all experts at this now. So I'm just repeating myself. But you can tell your friends. The ones that really need it. The ones that really need it. Because you already know how to do this.
Only when they're vulnerable. Vulnerable enough to be here.
So the second obvious one, reach out to someone you can trust. And it is important, as you were talking about, Barry, that it needs to be someone that can hear you. Because if they can't hear you, or if they're going to gossip about you, or they're not really hearing you, it's going to be more damaging. So a trusted friend, clergy, coach, teacher, someone who will take the time to really hear you. And boy, just sometimes just putting those words out there, when you hear yourself say it, you go, oh, I don't really believe that, or, huh, that's really interesting. So there's such freedom to be able to get it out and see it. Writing helps too. You know, that's a great exercise. But to be able to speak it out loud to another person and have them, you know, even just sit there and be with you without any feedback and just to lovingly witness what you're saying. Very healing. Okay, so the last suggestion she has is to tell your story in Monica. How many have seen Monica Lewinsky's TED Talk? If you haven't, run home and watch it. As we all know, Monica Lewinsky was the scourge of Bill Clinton's experience and vice versa. And it was, for her, I mean, I don't know, through the years, what did you think of Monica Lewinsky?
Stupid.
Stupid, I was stupid, naive,
Naive.
a bit victim.
Naive.
Young. I pity her. I felt sorry for her because she was the butt of everyone's joke.
Right. Well, she was a bit of a lightning rod, you
so
know.
public.
It was
That's-
very public.
I felt sorry for her because of that. You know, is that how many women, how many young women had made a similar mistake, but it wasn't all over the national papers.
That's right. It wasn't
It wasn't the world. It wasn't with the president.
But she knew what she was doing because she was in a powerful position and she played it. and she was doing it because she had a motive of her own. This is not a dumb woman. She's whatever with the president.
But I don't think she's like, you know what, she's done her work. She was devastated by the whole thing. She was the butt of every joke. Horribly shamed. She was suicidal. And, you know, it's not like it just happened last year. This is a long process. I don't know.
And it's not gonna go away.
It's not going to go away, but she's owning her story.
I mean, I read somewhere that she didn't even go out of the house, that people were bringing her in food and things like that that she liked,
Yeah.
and she was horrified to see anybody.
Right.
Now, who can live like that? I mean, I know I could.
Yeah.
That is shame. That is
Shame and
ultimate
a
shame.
Yeah, and she was suicidal. too.
Yeah, and the sad part was, Lynn's moved on, but she was stuck for much longer.
Right, but I think it's a really
It's a
cool,
woman's thing.
It is a
Yeah,
cool TED Talk.
it's a
that's
cool
what-
TED Talk. And
She owns it.
She owns it, and just in terms of an example of someone taking a huge ball of shame, a huge swampland, oh my God, what have I done, and
Yes.
transforming it.
Yes.
So, as she says, only when we're brave enough to explore the darkness will we discover the infinite power of our light. So that's all I have to say, ladies.
Thank